Bezos Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Metzia Daf Lamed Beis. And I'm going to make it big, and we're going to start from the Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah on Daf Lamed Beis, Amid Aleph. Okay, so we're discussing over here. Today's daf is very interesting topics, but the first topic that the Mishnah brings down is that not everything that you see is a lost object. Right? If you see an animal, we learned in the previous Mishnayos that if you see an animal in the Rishus Harabim and it's grazing there, you could assume that the owner is nearby. You don't just pick it up because because you think it's lost. You have to use some common sense before you determine something is lost. So the Mishnah gives you a couple of examples of things that you think is lost, but it's not really lost. So the Mishnah says, Metzia barefes. You found an animal alone in barefes is a stable. And so the fact that it's in a stable, even though it's not locked, the stable, and it has one opening where the animal goes in and out, and it's grazing in the stable, ein chayah. You don't have to go in there and say, oh, this animal is lost. I don't know where the owner is. Let me return it. It's obviously put there by the owner, and the owner knows that the animal is not going to walk out on its own. Rishus Harabim, but if you find an animal in the Rishus Harabim, and here I'm going to stress that the animal looks lost. There's no grazing in the Rishus Harabim. The animal looks like disheveled, or it looks like it broke away from a pact. So then chayba, then you have to return the animal and find out who the owner is. Now, v'im hoisa bebeis hakvaros. Let's say the animal is in a cemetery, and you're a kohen, right? So you would think that there's a mitzvah assay to go do hashavas aveda. So the Mishnah teaches you lo yitamalo. As a kohen, you're not supposed to go into the Beis HaKvaros. You're not supposed to go into the Beis HaKvaros to be mitama to get the animal. Because why? Why shouldn't you go in? It's an essay, and not to be mitama. A kohen is not allowed to be mitama. Is a lois essay. Lo yitama. The Torah tells us that a kohen is not allowed to be metama. So it's an essay doicha lois essay. Why don't we say the essay of hashavas aveda overrides the lois essay? And the answer is because a kohen also has an essay to be holy, kedoshim tiyu. So he has an essay and a lois essay. So the essay of hashavas aveda does not override the essay and lois essay of a kohen not going into a beis hakvaros. Now the Mishnah says, Im Amma loy aviv. If his father says to a person, his father says to the kohen, Hi tamei, I want you to go into the Beis HaKvaros and get the Hashavas Aveda. The father maybe he's an Amoritz, he doesn't know, but he tells his son, go into the Beis HaKvaros. Or just the opposite, She'ama loy al tachsi. He says, I don't want you to return the Hashavas Aveda. I want you to work for me, get something for me. So then he's telling him not to do mimkaim the mitzvah. So lo yishmalah, you don't have to listen to your father. Now, so that is discussion over here. We'll discuss more about that in the Gemara. Now the Mishnah segues to another mitzvah. There's a mitzvah in the Torah that if you see an animal that is crouching, right? Roivetz tachas masa'oi. That means you see an animal and the owner of the animal is right nearby. And he overloaded the animal, so now the animal is now too much on its back, and now it's crouching and it can't get up. So there's a mitzvah in the Torah called prika. What does prika mean? You have to help unload the animal. So you can learn pshat why you have to help unload the animal. What is the Torah concern? To help your friend. Right, it's too much to unload, like to unload a car, even so same thing. To unload the animal, it may be too much. So you have to help your friend, but also there is a pain for the animal to have such a heavy load on its back that it can't move. So we'll discuss that. Is that one of the reasons why the Torah said prika? You have to take off. You have to help your friend unload the animal. Then there's a mitzvah if you see your friend on the road. Or even after, let's do it this way, even after you help unload the animal, you have to help him reload the animal in the proper way so that it's easy for the animal to carry the load. That's called ti'ina. So there's a mitzvah of hokim, tokim, you have to, ozev tazov, of hokim, tokim. So there's a mitzvah of prika, unloading an animal, and there's a mitzvah of helping your friend load an animal. So the Mishnah says, Horak, if you help your friend unload the animal. Vita'an, and then you help your friend reload the animal. Same animal, right? Because you can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to help you unload the animal and let me be on my way." I mean, what's the guy supposed to do? You have to help him reload the animal so it's properly fit for the back of the animal. But let's say you did it once, then the animal crouched again, parak v'tarn, and you unloaded the animal and reloaded the animal. And you did this afila abava chamisha pa'amim. You did this 4 or 5 times, and you're getting tired of doing this mitzvah. Chayev, you're still obligated to do it until the animal is able to walk on its own. Shenema, because the pasuk says ozoiv tazoiv, you have to help your friend, right? Ozoiv means continue to help your friend no matter what. So that's what you learn from the word ozoiv. Continue to help your friend, even if you have to do this mitzvah a few hundred times. That is the mitzvah of ozoiv tazoiv. Says the Mishnah, from the Mishnah, holach v'yoshev loy. If the owner of the animal sat down and says, "Listen, v'aman," he said to you, "Hoya v'lecha mitzvah," since you have this mitzvah of what? Helping me load my animal or unload my animal. So I'm going to sit there and have a soda, and you do the mitzvah. He's not going to assist you. If he wants to unload the animal, unload the animal. If you want to do the mitzvah, do the mitzvah. Then potter, you don't have to help him. Now, potter means pashtus, you don't have to do the mitzvah. But the truth is, it could be there's a mitzvah of tsar balechayim. You can't let the animal suffer. So you can do the mitzvah, but you can charge money for it, right? That would be probably what potter means. Shenema, because the pasuk says imoy, that this mitzvah is one of those mitzvahs that the owner of the animal has to help you with him. You're helping unload the animal with him and reload the animal. However, if the owner of the animal is an old person or a sick person, so he can't carry heavy items, chayev, then you're obligated to do the mitzvah by yourself. Then the Mishnah says a strange word. Mitzvah min Torah lifroik. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to unload an animal. Avaloi litoin, but there's no mitzvah in the Torah to load an animal. Now, that's strange because the Torah clearly says if you see a friend needs to load an animal, you have to help him. So we'll have to explain what this part of the Mishnah means. Rav Shimon Omer af litoin, there's a mitzvah also to load the animal. So we'll explain what this means, and the Gemara is going to explain what this means. Rabbi Yossi Haglili Omer. Rabbi Yossi Haglili says, Im hoya olav yesa al masoi, if the animal had a load more than it can carry, and basically the owner of the animal is negligent. He put too much of a load on the animal. Ein zakakla. You don't have to pay attention to help him unload the animal, because obviously if the owner of the animal doesn't care about the animal, you don't have to help his animal. Shenema, the pasuk says, tachas. Shenema, the pasuk says, tachas masoi. The tachas masoi, that you have to help him, the animal, get from under its load. Masoi sheyochal lamed boy. It has to be a load that was befitting for the animal. And if the owner of the animal overloaded the animal, then you, as a good Samaritan, don't have to help him to unload the animal. So let's go discuss the first part of the Mishnah. Amar Rava said that we found an animal in a barn. So then you don't have to return the animal. Amar Rava. So Rava said, Refesh Amru Eina Mateh ve'Eina Mishameres. It's a type of barn that the animal can't get lost in there. I mean, let's say there's one way out from the barn, and ve'Eina Mishameres, but it's not totally locked in. So what does that mean? Eina mat, it's not lost, right? It's not lost. It means it's not lost that the animal could easily get out. So the answer is eina matas, because since you're not obligated to return it, obviously this animal is not lost by being in a barn. The eina mishameres, but at the same time, it's not a watched barn. In other words, perhaps the door is not locked. So if the door is not locked, so that's what's bringing you this suffix. The door's not locked, but it's in a barn. Should I return it?
Is it your barn or somebody else's?
Probably an open, let's say a barn in the park or something like that. So maybe
I mean, it's not somebody's property, and you're someplace you shouldn't be, and you see an animal.
Right. Right, because then what would be the chiddush of the Mishnah?
Right.
Because if it's his property. Probably it's a park and there's a barn there. And it's almost
Okay.
like, where ever go to New York City parks, they have this dog pen there. Where the dogs they have a separate park for the dogs.
Right.
So that's what it is.
A dog run. Yeah.
So that's probably what it is. So if you
Okay.
find the animal there, the owner just went away. Maybe he went to the bathroom or something like that. So because you have to balance it, because otherwise the Mishnah has to tell you a novelty that you don't have to return it. Now, if it's in somebody's house, obviously you don't have to return it. That's what the Gemara says. The that if it's locked, when you find it outside, you bring it into a locked room. If you find it in a locked barn, certainly you don't have to return it. Al Shmamino, Mishnah is talking about Eina Mishameres. It's not a locked pen, but nevertheless, it's still in a pen. Shmamino, so that's the understanding of the Mishnah, that that's the reason why the Mishnah teaches you don't have to return it. You have to use, this is the common sense that the Mishnah is teaching you. So then the Mishnah says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, where is the barn? It depends where the barn is. I mean, I guess let's assume the barn is in a park. If the barn is within the 2,000 amas from the city, right? Because if it's within that 2,000 amas from the city, then you can say, because Michlal, if you find it b'reshus harabim, if you find it in the public thoroughfare, even if it's in very close to the city, you're also obligated to return. You're also obligated to return it. Okay, so the only time, so both. If the barn is outside the tchum, if the barn is very far away, you're obligated to return it. The only the heter that the Mishnah is talking about is if the barn is in the tchum. Reshus harabim, even if it's in the tchum, you also chayav to return it because it's lost in the Reshus harabim. Ikadamasla seifa. Others say that Rabbi Yitzchak talked about the end of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says in Reshus harabim, you're obligated to return the animal. If you find an animal in Reshus harabim, Rabbi Yitzchak, only if the public Reshus harabim is, let's say, it's a highway outside the city, very far outside the tchum. But if it's in the tchum, then if it's Reshus harabim that's in the tchum of the city, then you don't have to return it because the person who put it there can come out of his house right into Reshus harabim and retrieve his animal. But from here we see the berefus even if a barn, even if it's outside the tchum, you don't have to return it. So that's just an understanding of how far you go with when you find it in a barn. Now we learned in the Mishnah basic kavaris lo yitam lo. You find the animal in a cemetery, you don't be mitamet. Well, you don't have to be mitamet. Tan rabbanim. If your dad tells you yitam lo, if your father tells you don't return the lost item or go into the base of kavaras to retrieve it, so he's basically telling you to do an avera. How do you know you're not supposed to listen to your father? Shnema, it says in pasuk, the Torah juxtaposes that you have to fear your parents, but nevertheless keep Shabbos. My honor takes precedence because you and your father have to listen to me. So if your father tells you to be Mechala Shabbos, you don't have to listen to him. So the Gemara says, but if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for this pasuk, I would think you have to listen to your father and don't do Hashavas Aveda. Right? If your father would tell you not to do Hashavas Aveda, if it wasn't for this pasuk, I would think you listen to your father. Va'amai, why should I listen to your father? Hi, essay. The mitzvah of kibbut av is an essay. By loises of essay, and the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda is more stricter. It's a lois essay and an essay. Like sucha lehisalem hashev tishive. The loy asi essay in the essay of kibbut av aim v'dachi as loises of essay would not override the loises and essay of Hashavas Aveda. So even without this pasuk of Ishim Avis Tiro Shapsaisi Tishmor, I know that you're not supposed to listen to your father because it's only an essay, and Hashavas Aveda is an essay and a lois essay. Mara says, no, I would still think that you would have to listen to your father because Itzrach Salkadai Techamin, I would have thought. Hoyel, the essay of Kibbut Avayim is so important because the Hukash, Kibbut Avayim, the Kvaydish Macham, God compares that when you show honor and respect to your parents, then it's as if you're showing respect to the God. Shenema, kabed es avicha v'esimecha. You're supposed to honor your parents. V'nemer lahalon, it says kabes es Hashem hoinecha. Honor God from your possessions. So it uses the same language, kabed and kabed, just like so hilkach. So therefore, I would think litzayis le, you would listen to your parents, because that's like honoring God. When they tell you to be over something on the Torah, to transgress something on the Torah, you don't listen to your parents, even though honoring your parents is like honoring God Himself. Mitzvah min Torah lifloik avlo yitai. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to unload, not to load. My avlo yitai. Ilem avlo yitai klau. What do you mean? There's no mitzvah to load? Maishna priked ksiv ozev taziv imai tiina nami hoksiv hokim takim imai. So it obviously there is a mitzvah in the Torah to load an animal, hakim takim, and there's a mitzvah to unload an animal. So what did the mitzvah? What did the Mishnah mean? There's no mitzvah in the Torah to load an animal. So this is the pshat in the Mishnah. El mitzvah min Torah lifrek bechinam. The mitzvah in the Torah is to unload an animal, and you have to do it for free. You don't to load an animal, you could demand payment. It's a mitzvah, but you could demand payment. Reb Shimon says even to load an animal, it's bechinam and free. Now, how do you explain what is the machlokes all about? The question is, can you charge for loading an animal? Reb Shimon says not, and the Tanna Kama says yes. Tanina lahod Tanrabanan. It's explained by the following brisa. Prike bechinam teina besachar. Reb Shimon is always a bechinam. So the Tanna Kama says teina could be with payment, and Reb Shimon says no, both prika and teina have to be free. So the Gemara says, "My tamayu the Rabbanim." Why do the Rabbanim allow you to charge to load an animal? Isal kadaitik. If you would think Reb Shimon that you hold like Reb Shimon, lichte rachmana teina v'loy proi prika. Let the Torah just say you could load an animal, and of course I know you have to unload an animal. To tell you mitzvah of Gemilas Chesed, once the Torah tells you you have to help your friend load an animal, certainly I know you have to help him unload an animal. Why? Because if you tell me you have to load an animal, the less balachayim, there is no pain for the animal. And there's no loss of money value over there. It's just the items are on the floor and the animal's standing up. And nevertheless, the Torah says, Chayiv, you have to help your friend. When it comes to unloading an animal, where the animal is just crouching and breaking its back on the floor, the isbatzal bal chayim, there's pain for the animal, the chesron kiss, and the guy's losing money because his animal is hurt. So of course, like Kolchkin, you have to help your friend. So why did the Torah tell you that there's a mitzvah to help your friend to unload an animal? Of course, I would know that you have to unload the animal. Why did the Torah tell you that? They teach you. That means this mitzvah of loading an animal, unlike unloading an animal, you have to do it for free. Loading the animal, you can charge. Reb Shimon, according to Reb Shimon, why the Rabbanan made a strong case that you should be able to charge. That was the chiddush of the Torah, writing out the concept that you have to help your friend load an animal, because the Torah is teaching you that you're allowed to charge your friend to do so. So why didn't Reb Shimon agree to that? The pasuk doesn't clearly write out you're actually helping load an animal. The Torah writes hokim tokim, help him stand up. Maybe it's unloading an animal. So it's not clear what. Maybe both are talking about unloading an animal.
Is this loading an animal after you unload, or is this your neighbor wants to do something and you're loading it for the first time, or is this only after the unload?
It could be both. It could be both. First time, and then after you help him unload, if you can charge him according to the Chachamim to load it. But it's not. The Rabbanan say it's very clear that one pasuk is talking about unloading, and one pasuk the Torah is telling you have to help your friend load. According to Reb Shimon, it's not clear because the Torah uses the language hakim takim. What does hakim takim mean? Help him get up. Maybe does that mean? But with teaching it means hakim takim means load the animal, or ozev tavizai means to help unload the animal. But according to Reb Shimon, it's not clear. So the psukim are not clear what it's talking about. According to Rabbanan, answers to Reb Shimon, what do you mean? The pasuk's not clear. The pasuk says roivetz tachlis masoi hasem ksiv noiflim badera. One says the animal's crouching, so it must be crouching under its load. The other palm, hokim takim, help the animal get up, means that the load fell off the animal and it's on the floor, but the animal's not crouching. The remini inu tinimba urchamashma. So that means that maybe the animal's standing and you just helping him load the animal. Rab Shimon means noiflim b'derech inu tininu ilavi mashma. According to Rab Shimon, that the pasuk hakim takim could be talking about with both the animal and the load are on the road. In other words, it's another way of the Torah giving you loading an animal. But basically, the point you to remember is that the machlokes between Rab Shimon and Chachamim is if you can charge for loading an animal. Okay, now Amar Rava, new Gemara, Amar Rava. We go to Amar Beis. B'divrei Shneim. Now this is a very important machlokes. Did the Torah have concern for Tsar Balei Chayim? Tsar Balei Chayim means if can you cause an animal pain? Can you cause an animal pain? And if you have a suffix, then it's a machlokes in the Gemara now. Is it Tsar Balei Chayim Doiraisa? The Torah doesn't want you to cause pain to animals, or that concept is not a Torah concept; it's the Rabbanan concept. So Rava came to the conclusion with Divrei Shneim from Rab Shimon and Rabbanan. We learned Tsar Balei Chayim Doiraisa, causing pain from the animal is an asur from the Torah, because Vafil Rab Shimon loy kamal mishum delay misai mikroi, Alba misai mikroi darshinam kavachoyim. In other words, both of them would have agreed that prika, unloading an animal, is a much more is certainly you have to help an animal because this tsar balei chayim. The only reason Rabbi Shimon didn't have that kal v'chomer, which allowed the Rabbanan to come to the conclusion that you're allowed to charge for te'ina because that's unnecessary, is because the pasuk were not clear what it's talking about. But if it was clear, I would have a kal v'chomer, that if the Torah requires you to do te'ina, of course it could do prika. So why does the Torah write prika? And so why would I know prika? Because prika has tsar balei chayim. So we see that both of them invoked the concept of tsar balei chayim. So we see from Rava's conclusion is both Rav Shimon and Rabbanan both hold tsar balei chayim is daraisa. So the Gemara says no. Dilma mishum the ikich chisrin kiss. The reason why they have a kal v'chomer is because there's a loss of money over here. V'hachi kama matin less by chisrin kiss chayav prika this by chisrin kiss like kal shkein. There's nothing to do with tsar balei chayim. Loading an animal, there's no loss for the owner, and the Torah says you have to help. Of course, when prika the ispech chisrin kiss, when the guy's going to lose his animal, not because of you causing pain to the animal, but he's the owner of the animal is going to get a broken animal. Like kal shkein, of course you have to pay it. That's what the Chachamim meant. So Gemara says no. Utiina ein boy chesron kiss. Loading an animal, you don't. If just having animal standing with a load on the side, there is no loss of money there. Till you load the animal, you're not getting to the marketplace. Iname or if you don't load the animal up in time, some ganavim may come and steal it. So that's the basics of the kal v'chomer, but there's no proof. So what the Gemara is trying to push away is Rava. There is no proof that both Rab Shimon and Rabbanan hold tsar balei chayim daraisa. This is the point. Is causing pain to an animal min Torah. Lots of times you see that the Torah will say, don't do something. Let's say the Torah says, don't muzzle an animal while it's threshing. So you would think that the reason is because now the animal can't eat while it's stomping and threshing the grain. It could be that's the reason of tsar balei chayim. But it's not clear if that is the reason of the Torah, and the Torah is very concerned about causing pain to an animal. But Rava was certain in his opinion that tsar balei chayim is min Torah. Now the Gemara is going to go along with that. Heida, I'll prove it to you. The tsar balei chayim daraisa. That tsar balei chayim is min Torah. Why? The Ketani Sefer, the end of the Mishnah says, "Rabbi Yosef Galila Oimim Hoya Yasa Olav Amasoi Ein Zakaloi Shnema Tachas Masoi Masoi Shiochalam Boy." That Rabbi Yosef Galili said, if the animal was overloaded by the owner to such a degree that it was clearly that the owner was negligent, you don't have to help the owner unload the animal. That's Rabbi Yosef Galili's opinion. You could sit at the side and say, "Listen, you did a crazy thing, overloading the animal. I'm not going to help you with that." Lav Miklal the Tanakama Sava, but it must be if the Tanakama disagrees with Rabbi Yosef Galili, Zakakla, you really have to help the animal, despite the negligence of the owner. So it must be my tama. What would be the reason of the rabbanim? Not because you want to help the owner, lav mishum de tzar balachaim deraisa, because tzar balachaim is minat Torah, and tzar balachaim is a concern of the Torah. So even without this pasuk, without any pasuk, you have to help to stop causing the pain for an animal. Again, if tzar balachaim is deraisa, if you see an animal in pain, you probably have to help it. So that would be the reason of the Gemara. That would be the reason of the Tanakama. So the Gemara says, no, Dilma Tachas Masoy Pligi. Maybe the Machlekes is what the meaning of under its load. The Rabbi Yossi Sava Darshin Tachas Masoy Sheyachal Lamed Bay. That the word Tachas Masoy means it has to be under the load that's appropriate for the animal. For Rabbanan Savri, not so. Loy Darshin Tachas Masoy, they don't have this drasha. It has to be appropriate load for the animal. It could be any load for this animal. So therefore, the Rabbanan are much more stricter regarding that matter. Now the Gemara just continues, just another line or two. Teda, the tzar balachaim lav daraisa. I'll prove it to you that tzar balachaim is not min Torah. The Ketana Reisha, the Breisha that says halach v'yashad loy v'ayma hayav v'mitzvah lifrei paroik potash nema imay. The Torah tells you, the Mishnah says that if the guy says, I'm not helping you, if you want to help unload my animal, I'll sit on the side here and have a soda, and you do the mitzvah. So then you don't have to help unload the animal. But if you hold tzar balachaim is the raisa, that whenever you see an animal in pain, you have to help out. So visa kadaita tzar balachaim the raisa mali isa lamari bahadei mali lesa lamari bahadei. What's the difference if the owner is right nearby or not nearby? You have to help the animals in pain. So just because the owner says you unload the animal, I'm sitting down, that doesn't exempt you. And says the Gemara, you're right. Loilam tzar balachaim daraisa. I could say that tzar balachaim is daraisa. And really, you're not exempt from helping ease the pain of the animal. So misavrit, what do you mean potter legamri? Do you mean that you don't have to help unload the animal because you're exempt? No, dilma potter bechinam. You don't have to do it for free. If the owner is sitting there on the side, then and not helping out, you don't have to do it for free. But v'chayev b'schar, but you have to do it with payment. And here we will end. This is what the Torah means to say. If the owner is nearby, then you work for free because the owner is helping you unload the animal. If the owner is not going to help out, well, you still need to do it because the animal's in pain. You could do it and tell the owner, I'm going to charge you for my time. Maybe if you see an animal in pain, to ease the pain is minat Torah. You're obligated to ease the pain of animals. So this is a big sugya that we're going to be discussing more tomorrow. So we'll start from Lema Messiah and discuss it more, and we'll finish the sugya of Tzar Balachaim. Okay.
Thank you.